are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Sherry Schock. Now, here's the host of Lighthearted, Jeremy D'Entremont.
Welcome. A big thank you to our special guest announcer, Sherry Schock of Pennsylvania, for that introduction. I invite all our listeners to send in their own version of the introduction. You can email me at jeremy@uslhs.org to find out more. My co-host today is Michelle Jewel Shaw, teacher, mom, and chair of Friends of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouses. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Jeremy, and hello to all of our listeners out there.
Today is June 6th, 2021, and this is episode 122 of Lighthearted. We are heading all the way to Norway in today's episode, into the Arctic Circle, in fact. And we'll tell you about that in a minute. We're well into spring here, and we've started our tours by appointment at Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse here on the New Hampshire seacoast. How do you think that's been going so far, Michelle?
I think it's going great. We've had a couple weekends of tours now with just small groups, and I think it's gone incredible. It's really great having people back at the lighthouse again, even if it's just smaller groups at a time now, but we're still getting people out there and letting them see the beautiful lighthouse and telling them about the history of it.
Well, I agree with everything you said, and for us too, it's just great being back there.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's just a great place to be. And speaking of that, you and I got to clean the fourth order Fresnel lens in the lighthouse just a couple of weeks ago.
That was very neat. That was the first time I'd ever done that, and I was a little nervous at first. I was afraid that I might break something.
Well, I don't think you broke anything that I noticed anyway. And the lens looks amazing. It looks brand new. It looks so shiny and new. And let me mention something else. Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse for a long time, for many years now, has had a fixed green light, and that's produced by a green acrylic cylinder that's around the fourth order Fresnel lens. But very soon, we're told this is going to happen really soon, the Coast Guard is going to put a green LED light inside the Fresnel lens, and that'll produce the green light without having that acrylic cylinder around it. So that cylinder will be gone, and everybody will be able to see that beautiful Fresnel lens in all its glory.
I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, it is really exciting. I'm looking forward to it. So, our listeners might remember that this year is the 250th anniversary of the first lighting of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse. It was the first lighthouse north of Boston in the American colonies. The date of the first lighting was June 8th, 1771. So the actual anniversary is just 2 days after this podcast episode is being released.
Right. And we're having a special virtual celebration just a few hours after this podcast episode is released on June 6th at 4 p.m.
Yes, we are. People can find out more about that at portsmouthharborlighthouse.org. You can register in advance to attend the celebration using Zoom. You and I will be taking part in the event. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Video of the event will be posted on our website at portsmouthharborlighthouse.org. Also, after the event, video of the event will be posted on our website, again, portsmouthharborlighthouse.org.
I think it's going to be a great event, and I'm hoping to see lots of people there to be a part of some of the fun things that are planned for this event.
Not too many light stations can say they're 250 years old.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about today's episode. We'll be talking today with Elena Hansteensen, the owner and managing director of the Littleisland Lighthouse in Norway, which is run as a small hotel.
Litløy, or Little Island Lighthouse in English, is on a small island off the northwest coast of Norway. It was first lit in October 1912. For a time, it was the second most powerful lighthouse in Norway. The lighthouse was electrified in 1959 and then automated in 1991.
Staff remained at the light station to maintain the property and to run a weather station. Eventually, the staff was removed in 2003. Then a couple of years later, the Norwegian Coastal Administration sold 20 lighthouses to new stewards. Elena Hansteensen bought Litløy with the intention of making it accessible to the public.
The property has been renovated and overnight accommodations are now available, as well as guided tours. Elena is the island's only permanent inhabitant, although there is support staff to help with the operation of the hotel.
Travel and Leisure named Little Island Lighthouse one of the best small hotels in the world. Here is their description. Quote, "If visiting an old European lighthouse, going whale watching, and gazing up at the northern lights are on your bucket list, check into Norway's Little Island Lighthouse, which lets you do all three in a single day."
The review continues, quote, "Upon arrival, the caretaker will lead you to the lighthouse's separate residence. The accommodations come with a guest library and 2 bedrooms that can each sleep 3. In addition to watching the pods of orcas break the surface from the cliff, a trip in summer also means exploring the island's super cool underground cave." End quote.
Elena Hansteensen was honored with an award for women entrepreneurs in 2017. She has also been deeply involved in international humanitarian organizations, including 6 years in Palestine. I recently had the pleasure of speaking with Elena. Let's listen to that now. I'm speaking today with Elena Hansteinson, and I'll ask you, Elena, to maybe say your name properly in a moment here. But Elena is the owner and managing director of the Little Island Lighthouse in Norway. It's very nice to meet you, Elena. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is quite interesting.
Well, first of all, as I said, if you could say your name properly in Norwegian, and also if you could say the name of your lighthouse in Norwegian for me.
Yeah, the lighthouse is Litløy, which actually means the Little Island Lighthouse. So that's why I used the Little Island in English.
Right.
Also because there is a letter there, Norwegian letter, the O with a something in the middle of it, which complicates the matters a bit. And the same with my name. My Norwegian name is Ellen Marie, but I always use Elena in English. So, and then my family name is Hansteensen.
Okay.
Quite long and complicated, but quite simple meaning. Yeah.
Okay. Well, pardon my mediocre pronunciation, but FYR is lighthouse in Norwegian. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
How do you pronounce that?
Fyr.
Fyr.
And
Okay,
that has a few meanings in Norwegian. It means a flame, but it can also mean a man.
Well, that's interesting.
Yes, it is.
Like English, we have words that mean multiple things, so it can get very confusing. So what exactly led you to buy and restore a lighthouse in the first place?
It was a French author that made me very much aware that I love the sea, and I was starting to longing for the sea and small islands. Her name was Marguerite Yourcenar, and she ended up living up the east coast of US, I think. But that's a parenthesis. Reading her book, when I was in the beginning of my 20s, I was really becoming aware that I had a strong longing to live close to the sea, and if possible, living on a small island. And then I thought, Elena, that you cannot even dream about, because that's only for rich people to be able to live on a small island, more or less by yourself. So then I changed that whole little dream, and I said, well, but I can always dream about living as close to the sea as possible. So I decided I want to live as close to the sea as possible. And then I worked as a tour guide in Norway for French tourists for quite a few years, traveling all around Norway, seeing more and more of Norway and the Norwegian coast, quite long, the Norwegian coast. And then I started to feel also very attracted to the northern part of Norway. I am not originally myself from the north. I come from the south of Norway, but this lighthouse where I am is in the north. So this attraction and I would say longing to the open sea, that is what has initiated my journey towards the lighthouse. Yeah.
Well, I can completely understand the attraction to the sea, and from what I've seen about you online, it's pretty apparent that you have that love. And I was just thinking of one photo that I've seen in you in a couple of places online. I think it's on your Facebook page. There's a picture of you standing on the railing of the lighthouse, on the lantern gallery, as we call it, of the lighthouse, looking out to sea. It's a great picture. And it's not something I'd recommend to the average person to do, but I love the picture.
Yeah.
So before you bought Little Island Lighthouse, were you involved like in the hospitality industry at all, with hotels or B&Bs, anything like that?
Yes. So my father was a chef, and I normally say I grew up in restaurants and hotels. We were actually moving quite a lot between hotels and restaurants in my childhood. And so my first work experience was in the tourism business since I was 10, 11 years old. And I continued in that business or that kind of work sphere even during my studies, my university studies. And for many years, I felt it was quite nice. It's a nice platform to meet people when you're social and stuff. But I felt it was a little bit superficial in many ways, big hotels, lots of big groups, etc. So I didn't have that as a dream to continue to work in. So I more went into journalism, and then I specialized also in the Middle East. So, but when the journalism work I had didn't really satisfy me at a certain point, and I heard about this lighthouse up north, then suddenly I started to think, what shall I live of if I move up north in Norway, and how can I survive? And then I got this idea that maybe a small guest house would be something. So then my old kind of roots came out, and it felt very easy for me, safe, like a safe platform, like a platform I knew quite well to stand on when I wanted to do something else.
Were lighthouses particularly an interest of yours before you bought the property there?
No, lighthouses I feel all lighthouses has a kind of magnetic power to them for many people. At least for me, they had. But I didn't know anything about lighthouses, neither in Norway, I hadn't even visited a lighthouse before I bought this one. So no, I must say no. But it was like a total new field coming to me when I moved here.
Okay. And have you become more interested in lighthouses in general since you bought your lighthouse? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Wherever I go, it's a lot about lighthouses. If there is a lighthouse in the neighborhood where I go, anywhere, I want to see it and know more about it. And of course, there are a lot of similarities between many lighthouses and the history. And so, no, today I'm super interested in lighthouses. Yeah.
That's great. And if you come to the northeastern U.S., please let me know if you can, and I'd be happy to try to help you get to some lighthouses.
Yeah, that would be so interesting.
Yeah, it'd be fun. So your island is within the Arctic Circle. I'm correct about that, right?
Exactly.
And what's the weather like this time of year there?
Well, this year, I would say spring comes very late. So it's a reminder this year that really we live beyond the Arctic Circle. But it could as well be spring, beginning of April. But I would say springtime, compared to living in the southern part of Norway, comes late. But the winter time here at the coast is quite mild. So it's rare that it's more than -5 degrees. Of course, when it's windy, which it is quite often by the open coast, then it feels stronger. But thanks to the Gulf Stream coming from South America all the way up here, we have quite a mild climate. So there is no frost on the sea around the island, and this is quite a small island. So the sea around this island is always between 3 and 5 degrees during wintertime, which also then means that the snow comes here the latest in the whole region and leaves the first in the whole region. It's quite mild, and the lighthouse itself turns towards the south with a good little rock against the north. So I can plant things, herbs, vegetables, flowers, which I really love. So
Yeah.
I feel that despite the fact that it's, beyond the Arctic Circle, it's not too cold.
It reminds me of recently I interviewed two people at the Sunborough Head Lighthouse in the Shetland Islands. It's not nearly as far north as you, but because of the Gulf Stream there also, they have a surprisingly mild climate, although they said it's extremely windy there much of the time, kind of similar to you. So let's talk about the lighthouse itself. Are there any stories about the history of the lighthouse, maybe how it began and or the history of the people living there that you find especially interesting?
Yeah, well, this lighthouse was made primarily after a demand from the fishermen in this region. This region called Vesterålen and Lofoten in Norway, it's famous in Norway for its cod fishing and other kind of fishing. It's a very, very rich fishing fields around here. And so it was primarily for the fishermen that the lighthouse was decided to be built in 1906, and then in 6 years later, then in 1912, it was finished. And this is a so-called coastal lighthouse. So it means there is just one white light, not a green or red zone, just white zone. And it's also, this lighthouse, it's quite small the building itself is quite small. It's not very tall, but it stands up on a rock. We have 3 lighthouses like that in Norway, very similar. So the light, when it came from from the tower itself, was 55 meters beyond sea level. So that's relatively high, also in a Norwegian perspective. And when it was electrified in the end of the 50s sometime, then it was the second strongest lighthouse in Norway. And there are people in the region that had grown up with the signal of this lighthouse and find that very special. When I moved here, the light was still coming up from the lighthouse tower itself. But some years after I moved here, the Coastal Administration, from whom I bought it, they had decided then to put up a new light, a little smaller version, and it's not now coming from the tower anymore, the small light on this property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it on like some kind of modern steel tower or something like that?
Yeah, it's not really a tower, I would say. It's more like a very quite a tall little small construction with a LED light, and there is a little solar panel, 3 small solar panels on it, and it's not as strong as it was, and it has a different symbol now. It's one white light every 10 seconds and the other one, and not the same range. Now it's just 12 nautical miles. So,
okay.
yeah.
So a moment ago you referred to it having a LED light. That would be what we call an LED.
Yeah.
And a lot of our lighthouses, especially the offshore ones, have been converted to LED lights as well. And in a lot of cases, just like yours, the range of the light, how far it's seen, is less than it used to be. So we have a very, very similar situation here. When it was a staffed light station, there was one keeper and a family living there. Is that correct?
No, this was built for 2 families.
Okay.
2 lighthouse keepers with families. So it was a so-called family station. And in addition, they had 1 assistant. So there were 3
3 keepers. Okay.
3 keepers taking care of it. One of the reasons, is a small curiosity, is that when the tower is so small, to run it, they had to go up to the tower and work the winch more often than on a tall lighthouse, because it took longer time for the heavy weight to reach the bottom of the tower.
Right.
In the long tower, and shorter time in the short tower.
Right.
And that's why actually they needed 3 keepers to be up there 24/7, especially during the winter time here, when it's really dark, and it has to, the light has to be running 24 hours. Beyond the Arctic Circle, it's during wintertime, it's really dark. So then the light has to run 24 hours for a few weeks.
So was there also a fog signal at the station? A foghorn?
No, not here. I think it's because in this area, the fog normally is not there during wintertime, but only during summertime.
Mm-hmm.
During summertime, one, there is not so many fishermen, and two, summertime we have, on the contrary to the winter, 24 hours of light.
Right.
So then the light is not shown. Then, of course, there could have been the fog, the sound, but no, it was never anything
Mm-hmm.
like that here.
So in the time of year when there was no or very little darkness, were the keepers still retained there during that time of year? Did the keepers still live there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They lived here. So this was it was a family station, and people lived here with their families, the keepers. Mm-hmm. On the island, this island, and there is a neighboring island, 2 islands standing alone in the open sea. Mm-hmm. People have been living on this island since Stone Age. But today, I am the only one living here.
Right.
But at the time when there was lighthouse keepers with families, they lived here with their family all year round.
All year round, okay. So what buildings are on the island besides the lighthouse tower itself?
So today there is only the lighthouse, the buildings on the lighthouse premises on the island.
Right.
Because the others, when they moved, most of them in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, then at that time it was still profitable or economic to take the building, to demount the building, take the wood down, because we have wood houses. They were rowing the material in and rebuild the material another place. This happened in Norway when the state had to provide electrical network to most of the households in Norway. And then the state realized it would be quite expensive to provide a cable, an electrical cable, out in the sea to people on small islands. So then they suggested that they could get a little subvention, a little grant, if they took the material and moved to what we call the mainland.
So there's a keeper's, what was a keeper's house that you live in, is that correct?
Yeah.
And you just mentioned the cable. There's still a submarine underwater cable that provides power for the island, or where does the power come from?
No, so I have to produce the power myself. Mm-hmm. So I have a diesel generator and solar panels, and I'm working very hard to get the good windmill. Mm-hmm. We also save rainwater to get water.
When you bought the property, what kind of condition were the buildings in?
They were quite good condition. Then it had been lighthouse keepers here until 2003. And I moved out here in 2006, 3 years later. So the buildings that were here were in quite good shape. They had renovated the keeper's house around 1980, and with quite a lot of materials and stuff. So it was quite okay.
So apparently you didn't need to do a tremendous amount of renovation before you opened it up for visitors. Is that right?
No, but it did look very nice. So, there were certain things I wanted to do. And also recently this year, or this winter, we have actually taken off the modern asbestos plates that we had put on in 1980 and modern windows, and put the house back as it was originally, with this wooden structure and old kind of windows. I think it has got its old soul more back. So I feel that's nicer.
You live on the island. Do you live there year round?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I do that.
Okay.
I have my own boat. There is no ferry or anything going out here, and people never thought that anyone would come. Anyone would come and live here. So, but I have my own boat, and I have quite a special also boat elevator to take the boat up from the sea in order to save the boat when it's stormy. That is the only American thing, as far as I know, that I have on the island. It's a boat elevator from Florida. Yeah.
Your cat has joined us for the interview here.
Yeah.
What's the cat's name? The beautiful orange cat we're seeing.
Yeah. His name is Lawrence of Arabia. I call him Lawrence.
Okay. Yeah. Lawrence. Yeah. Every lighthouse should have at least 1 or 2 cats. You don't have a dog also, do you?
No, I don't have it. I have 2 cats, and there might be a dog later. I don't know.
Are the accommodations there, the overnight accommodations for the public, are those open year round?
Yes, also.
They are.
Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, then during wintertime, people have to come before it's dark. So they have to be present at the harbor at the latest at 2:00. And it's a bigger risk that there could be a storm. So there is more of an adventure coming here during wintertime. But the weather and the light in particular can be so beautiful during wintertime. And of course, we also then have the northern light that we are looking for. So I would say a winter visit can be so exceptional and really worthwhile. So yeah, I also have open for guests during wintertime.
You mentioned you have your own boat. It's like an inflatable, or what you might call a rib boat. Is that correct?
It's a rib boat, but it's not inflatable. It's very durable and it's hard. So, but it looks like a rib boat. So it's an open boat with a strong engine, and it's made for stability. So I can go out in a small storm with it.
So you obviously have to go to the mainland for supplies pretty often.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
I have a big stock, so I can be here for 1 week or 2 weeks, or sometimes even longer. But then, of course, I would normally need some fresh stock. Yeah.
Sure. Do you fish at all yourself?
It's not what I love most. I love fish though, but this is such a rich fishing region that it's so easy for me to buy fresh fillets directly from the fishermen coming here at the harbor and delivering fillets. So I'm a bit spoiled there. Yeah.
How large is the island?
It's about 0.7 square kilometers. No, I'm not sure if that is actually just a number, I feel, because this island, the topography is quite up and down. There's a small little mountain, not very high, just 100 meters, but it takes a good hour to walk around the island. And if you really want to walk on the really outskirts of the island, then you can be walking for a couple of hours.
Really?
And you can, if you are here for a week, go for new small paths every day. It's quite rich.
Is there interesting, what we'd call beach combing, finding interesting things that have maybe washed in on the island?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have found letters, bottle letters, do you call them now?
Messages in a bottle, we would call them.
Yeah, messages in a bottle.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Can you describe the accommodations themselves?
Currently, I have 3 double rooms. They are also in the lighthouse keeper's house on the first floor. And we have 3 double rooms with good beds and 2 bathrooms. So they are not en suite, but they are quite close. We serve food, so it's full board with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we are working now to facilitate better and to have like a bigger restaurant on the ground floor and then have 1 more room. So within next year, we will have 4 double rooms and a kitchen and a restaurant.
Okay.
Because when people come here to this island, of course, they are stuck here. There's no other restaurant or place to go. So we have to accommodate. Then there is the lighthouse tower itself, which we are also renovating now. And next year it will be ready. So that will also then be rented out as a place where people can live, 1 or 2 persons, preferably a couple.
What sorts of food do you serve there? You mentioned seafood. I imagine that's a big part of it.
Definitely seafood, as long as people want that. Otherwise, we also have, it's also a region with the sheep, so we can also serve that if people want meat. Our own vegetables, also seaweed we use, and homegrown potatoes, carrots, and special herbs from the island, from the north. So I try as much as possible to go local with the food products. Yeah.
Do you do the cooking yourself?
Yeah, I have done quite a lot of cooking myself, but I also have had quite a lot of good help. And this year we are expecting there will be a professional chef coming from UK to help us for the summer. So that's quite nice. We hope that next year that we will have a professional chef here year round.
Oh, that's great. Are guided tours available for the guests who stayed there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have, of course, it's the lighthouse history that I explain and talk a bit about. And then it's also the other history on the island, as we have remnants on the island from 6,000 years ago and up until today. And so people coming here will be able to see and learn quite a lot about a range of northern Norwegian coastal history. Yeah.
And are tours also available for people who might not be staying overnight there, but come to visit during the day?
Yeah. So that is something we are now this year opening more up for, and hopefully more even next year when we'll get the restaurant ready, that people could come for a lunch and then a guided tour on the island. We are hoping to be able to facilitate for this more and more.
And do many people come in their own boats?
Not so many. Of course, my harbor system is not really big or large.
Yeah.
But during summertime, there is some sailboats. There are not many sailboats in northern Norway, but sometimes there are some come passing by, and I have a floating quay there, and they are coming there. But and when we have special events and stuff, other boats are coming. But in this region, which is a very traditional region, most people that have boats, they use them to go fishing. So that's why I will accommodate for or facilitate for the boat transportation.
And you can see the northern lights from the island, or
Yes.
the Aurora Borealis, right?
Yeah, it's very easy. We just open the door and go out. But of course, when all the other conditions are there, meaning it has to be a clear sky and there has to be some extra energy activity from the sun, this energy that is thrown out to the atmosphere and then drawn towards the poles with magnetism. So when this phenomenon is happening and the sky is clear, we see it. And even just the last time we saw it was a couple of weeks ago. Now it starts to be quite not so dark during nights. So then it's more difficult to see it. But a couple of weeks ago, we had some very nice northern lights.
I was just reading there's a lot of solar activity lately. I don't know if that affects what you're seeing, but here in New England, in the US, because of the solar activity, I was reading that we will be able to see the northern lights down into New Hampshire and Maine. I've never seen it. I'm tempted to try to get someplace where I can see it. That's on my bucket list. I want to see that sometime.
I would say it can be quite nice. Of course, it's a natural phenomena, so it does as it wants, and it shows up in different shapes and colors as well, depending. So, and of course, there is something with the photography and the photos. They can capture it stronger sometimes than we can see it with our eyes. And I would say a lot of the photos we see makes the northern light stronger than it is in reality. But I think it's still very beautiful and worthwhile seeing.
So tell me again, you talked about this earlier, but clarify for me how much daylight there is in summer, and conversely, how much darkness there is in winter there.
Yeah, so very soon, in around 3 weeks, at the end of May, we formally have the midnight sun. And that lasts then until first week of August. And then we are talking about 24 hours of light, 24 hours of sun if it's sunny. And then during wintertime, by the last week of November until the second week of January, there is no sun. We cannot see the sun, but we can see some light. There is a little bit of light, so but not the sun itself. So, but it can be dark then, especially if it's cloudy.
Yeah.
But of course, this is at the level where we are here at the little island. The further north you go, this longer is the darker period, and this longer is also the sunny period. Then the shorter the in-between periods. And here, the in-between periods where everything changes gradually then during spring and autumn.
So what do you do there during the period when it's completely dark?
Well, there is a lot to do on a lighthouse. I would say there is something special and interesting with lighthouse. You see the light far away, and it's very magic, this light that you see from far away.
Mm-hmm.
But when you live on a lighthouse, as I experience it, then you just have to work very hard to make this light work. You have
Mm-hmm.
to think very hard on making the daily things work. And life here is more cumbersome than in a big city. It takes more time to go shopping. It takes more time to carry the things 200 stairs up to the house, be out in the rough sea. Everything is a little bit more produced on our own energy. Every daily core takes more time. So that's to begin with. Then number two, all my years here, I have every year tried to work harder in improving the situation for the guests to come, for the garden to be bigger, so there is a continuous long to-do list that I'm struggling to keep up with. I really love the darkness and the calm it gives me. So I also try every winter to get some time only by myself, sit quiet in front of the fireplace, read. And then I feel then this darkness is really giving me like a big hug, and giving me focus for the reading or writing.
We're speaking today via Zoom. So you are on the island now, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So looks like you have a good internet connection there.
Yeah, we have. Oh, I have been struggling hard with that. We just recently, some months ago, got a good internet connection.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, sometimes I speak with people a few miles from me with Zoom, and the connection is horrible. And here we are, I don't know how many thousands of miles apart. And I'm seeing you just fine, and the sound is loud and clear. So
that's good. Yeah,
it is. It's great.
Good.
Yeah. And do you have? You must have a cell phone signal there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a cell phone signal. It's not very strong everywhere, but at certain places it's quite okay.
Do you have TV there? Television?
No, I don't have a television. However, I do watch films and television, but I normally use then the internet connection through computer. Do it that way.
So I imagine there's a lot of interesting wildlife around there, probably marine mammals. What kinds of wildlife are seen there?
Yeah, so of course the most extraordinary with the marine mammals are the whales, the orcas that we see around. We see them regularly all year round. They don't come really on appointments, but it's very nice when we see them. Then on the island itself, we don't have so many, but we have sea otters and minks on the island itself.
Okay.
But that's also it.
Yeah.
Then we have white-tailed eagles. Quite a lot. Norway is a protector of the white-tailed eagle in Europe, and so there is one couple nesting on this island, and we also see the eagles regularly. It's quite nice. Of course, the bird life is very rich.
Sounds great. Here in New England, we do have otters and mink, but they're rarely seen. We don't have orca. Of course, there's a lot of orca in the Pacific Northwest in the U.S.
Yeah. It's very nice when you see them, but then there's no guarantee. There's no guaranteed.
Of course, yeah. Have you ever been going back and forth in your small boat and have orcas all around you?
Yes.
That must be interesting.
Very, very. That has happened a few times. That's very interesting. Yeah. But I mean, it feels like a blessing, I feel so grateful. I would say that the thing that really took me up here, I said the sea earlier, but I can also put it in a bigger perspective and say that the things that holds me here, it's the sea, but even more, it's this mostly untouched wild nature. I feel it's very special to live so close to nature, be it through the birds, the sea, the fish, the whales, and the rest of it. I feel that's a very strong, it's a very strong, fascinating thing. And also with the changes of all the seasons that we have here very strongly, as I try to explain with the light and stuff, for me, all this makes the life here very, very worthwhile, even if it is a bit cumbersome.
Let me ask you, if our listeners might be thinking about coming there, what would you tell people to convince them they should come and stay at your lighthouse?
Well, I would say it is this mostly untouched nature That is, you don't get it so very many places. We have some other also lighthouses in Norway where standing on an island further out in the sea, where it's mostly impossible to come during wintertime. So here it's relatively close to the mainland. Like if the weather is good, it takes 15 minutes with the fast boat that I have. But of course, if the weather is rougher, we might use half an hour and go slower. But being able to be more or less alone on a small island that is now, there is only the lighthouse premises on the island. And in this open sea situation, I think there's not so many places where you can find that and year long, so that people can also experience this in a rough situation during wintertime. I think that is something that I find very truly special. It's a nice offer, I think, for those who are attracted to those kind of things. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it'd be an experience of a lifetime for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask you one more question for bonus points, okay? But to some degree, I think you've probably also already answered this. But let me ask you anyway. What has been your favorite thing of your involvement with Little Island Lighthouse?
Well, I moved out here for this kind of life because I was a bit fed up sitting in front of a computer. So I really love the practical life here. It's quite physical, carrying the shoppings out with the boat, these kind of things. So I like that part of the life here. In our modern life, we come more and more further and further away very often from this part of life, this more practical touch to reality. What is life really about? I mean, I actually have to now watch the weather forecast with close details and with great interest compared to when I lived in the city and it was just like, okay, sun or rain. Now I don't care much about the sun or rain. I only care about the wind and the strength of the wind because it has a meaning. So I like that part of it. But then again, just being so close to nature is very inspiring, very inspiring.
The place itself and your life there are absolutely fascinating. It's wonderful speaking with you. I don't know if I'm going to make it to Norway, but I dream of maybe visiting you there.
Well, if you will, you are so welcome. It would be a pleasure to invite you here, and then hopefully you could maybe sleep in the lighthouse tower itself. Wouldn't that be quite interesting?
That would be. Wow. I'll bring my sleeping bag if I stay there.
You wouldn't have to.
Okay, I'm sure you're well equipped there.
Good bed. We'll set up a good bed there.
Sounds absolutely great. So Elena, again, thanks so much for spending this time with me. It's a real pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
You can learn more about the accommodations at Little Island Lighthouse at littleislandlighthouse.com. Also, Elena recently took part in a U.S. Lighthouse Society virtual event with other lighthouse accommodation directors representing properties in 4 different countries. You can see the video of the event on the U.S. Lighthouse Society's YouTube channel.
That's right. Yeah, you can see that event on YouTube. Just do a search for USLHS or U.S. Lighthouse Society on YouTube and find the Society's YouTube channel. Video of that event is there, along with a lot of other videos. It's also on the U.S. Lighthouse Society website at uslhs.org.
Next week's episode of Lighthearted will feature an interview with Caroline Taylor of the Signal Tower Museum in Scotland, which is closely related to the famous Bell Rock Lighthouse.
Thanks to everyone who works to preserve lighthouses or any kind of history. We're all on the same team.
Be sure to check out the U.S. Lighthouse Society's website at uslhs.org, and please consider a donation to support this podcast and all the preservation and education activities of the Society.
If you listen using Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us. If you have ideas or suggestions, you can email me at jeremy@uslhs.org.
The author and consultant Mary Ann Radmacher once wrote, quote, "As we work to create light for others, we naturally light our own way," end quote.
I hope we'll see lots of you at our virtual celebration of the 250th anniversary of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouse. today, the same day this episode is being released, today on June 6th at 4 p.m. Check out portsmouthharborlighthouse.org for details. And again, if you miss it today, you can see it later on the USLHS YouTube channel, on the Friends of Portsmouth Harbor Lighthouses website, and also on the U.S. Lighthouse Society website. As always, thanks for listening, and
keep a good light.
In the dark, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little